Welcome to Story Time with Gigi. I'm so glad you're here today. Today's story is for my friend Jeremiah. It's Did I Ever Tell You How Lucky You Are? By Dr. Seuss. When I was quite young and quite small for my size, I met an old man in the desert of Dries, and he sang me a song I will never forget. At least, well, I haven't forgotten yet. He sat in a terribly prickly place, but he sang with a sunny, sweet smile on his face. When you think you are bad, when you feel sour and blue, when you start to get mad, you should do what I do. Just tell yourself, ducky, you're really quite lucky. Some people are much more, oh, very much more, oh, muchly, much, much more unlucky than you. Be glad you don't work at the Blungberg Bridge that they're building across the Booper Bay at Bum Ridge. It's a troublesome world. All the people who are in it are troubled with troubles almost every minute. You ought to be thankful a whole heaping lot for a place and people. You're lucky you're not. Just suppose, for example, you lived in Gazit and got caught in traffic on Gazit Highway 8. Or suppose, for instance, you lived in Gazir with a bedroom up here and a bathroom up there. Suppose, just suppose, you were poor Herbie Hart, who had taken his Thrumdimboo ladder apart. He never will get it together, I'm sure. He never will know if the gick or the gore fits the snurks or the snooks or the snore. Yes, ducky, you're lucky you're not Herbie Hart, who has taken his Thrumdimboom ladder apart. Think they work you too hard? Think of poor Ali Sard. He has to mow grass in his uncle's backyard. It's quick-growing grass, and it grows as he mows it. The faster he mows it, the faster he grows it. And all this stingy old uncle will pay for shoving that mower around that hay is a puffless pay of 2 dukels a day, and Ali can't live on such piffless pay. So he has to paint flagpoles on Sundays and grooves. How lucky you are you don't live in his shoes. And poor Mr. Bix, every morning at 6, poor Mr. Bix has his Borfin to fix. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. But his Borfin just seems to go slump every night. It slumps in a heap, sadly needing repair. Bix figures it's due to the local night air. It takes him all day to unslump it, and then the night air comes back and slumps it once again. So don't you feel blue. Don't get down in the dumps. You're lucky you don't have a Born Fix that slumps. And while we are at it, consider the Schultz, the grumple-horned, web-footed, green-beard Schultz, whose tail is entailed with the unsolvable knots. If he isn't muchly more worse off than you, I'll eat my umbrella. That's just what I'll do. And you're lucky indeed you don't ride a camel. To ride on a camel, you sit in a whammel. A whammel, you know, is a sort of a saddle held on by a button that's known as a faddle. And boy, if your old whammel faddle gets loose, I'm telling you, ducky, you're gone like a goose. And poor Mr. Potter, T-crosser, I daughter. He has to cross T's and he has to dot I's in an I and T factory out in Van Nuys. Oh, the jobs people work at out west near Hawacha Watch. There's a Hawacha Watcher, bee watcher. His job is to watch, is to keep both eyes on a lazy town bee. A bee that is watched will work harder, you see. Well, he watched and he watched, but in spite of his watch, the bee didn't work any harder. Not Hawatch. So then somebody said, oh, our old bee watching man just isn't bee watching as hard as he can. He ought to be watched by another Hawacha watcher. The things that we need is a bee watcher. Well, the bee watcher watched the bee watcher. He didn't watch well, so another Hawacha had to come in as a watcher. And today all the Hawatchers who live in Hawacha are watching the watcher watching the watcher who watched that bee. You're not a watcher. You're lucky, you see. That's a Hawata watching. And how fortunate you're not a Professor Debris, who has spent the past 32 years, if you please, trying to teach Irish ducks how to read Javanese. And think of the poor puffing Pooglehorn players who have the parade down the Pooglehorn stairs every morning to wake up the Prince of Pooh-Broken. It's awful how often their poogles get broken. And oh, just suppose you were poor Harry Hatto. Try as you will, you can't make any shadow. He thinks that perhaps something's wrong with his jizz, and I think that, by golly, there probably is. There he is. There's no shadow. And the brothers Bazoo, the poor brothers Bazoo, suppose your hair grew like theirs happens to do. You think you're unlucky, I'm telling you, ducky. Some people are muchly, oh ever so muchly more unlucky than you. And suppose that you lived in that forest in France where the average young person just hasn't a chance to escape from the perilous pants-eating plants. But your pants are safe. You're a fortunate guy, and you ought to be shouting, how lucky am I? And speaking of plants, you should be greatly gladish that you're not a farmer, Flatbergenist 17 radishes. And you're so lucky you're not Gucky Goin, who lives by himself 90 miles out of town in a ruins of Ronick. Ronick is rather run down. It's run down. And you're so lucky you're not a left sock left behind by mistake in a cavernous of crock. Thank goodness for all the things you are not. Thank goodness you're not something someone forgot and left all alone in some punkerish place like a rusty tin coat hanging in space. There it is, all by itself. That's why I say, ducky, don't grumble, don't stew. Some critters are so much, oh ever so much, so muchly much more unlucky than you. My goodness! There are so many things to be thankful for that you're not. I want to know in the comments below, what are you thankful for? And also tell me what stories you want me to read here at Story Time with Gigi. And also make sure you subscribe so you never miss a story time. And until next time, as my friend Les Brown would say, shoot for the moon, because if you miss, you might just land amongst the stars. Bye!